So I have a really easy talk for you today. I'm going to tell you why you need to help me save the world. Now, as many of you may know, I'm running the Brighton Marathon next year. It's the first marathon I've ever run. It's the furthest distance I've ever run, so I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you about something that I'm really passionate about, and that is environmental conservation. So around 50 years ago, groups of people came together because they realised that certain animals were becoming rarer and rarer. And what they did is they took animals like the giant panda and they started breeding them in captivity. But what soon became apparent was reintroducing these animals into the wild was incredibly difficult. It would be better to protect these animals in the environments that they naturally live in. In particular, it would be better to protect the entire ecosystem that they exist within, from the predators right at the top of the food chain all the way to the small animals and the plants at the bottom of the food chain. And although this seems like we're taking on more work because we're protecting more animals, the solution to do this is very simple. You protect the habitat that it lives within, like this piece of rainforest. Now, rainforests aren't just very important to protect because of the fact that 70% of the world's animals and plants live within them. This also has a massive impact on humans as well. If you consider the medical industry, which gets a quarter of its medicines from the rainforests, despite the fact that only 1% of its plants have been examined for its medical properties. So it doesn't take much imagination to consider what we could do if we examined the remaining 99%. The impact that it could have on medical science is huge. But it's also important to protect rainforests when you consider the rate that they're disappearing at. Now, the UN is estimating that around 7.3 million acres of rainforest are lost every single year. And that's the size of Panama, which is a country. So we're losing about a country's worth of rainforest every single year. To put that into even more context for you, that is 36 football fields every single minute. That doesn't just impact all of the animals and the communities that live in these forests, but it also impacts people as well, when you consider the impact this has on climate change. You know, trees are a great way of absorbing greenhouse gases, and 1 acre of rainforest every single year produces enough oxygen for 18 people. But 18 people isn't that many when you consider how many people there are and how quickly these rainforests are disappearing. So this is quite dangerous, and it's because of this that environmental conservation charities like the World Land Trust have campaigned to try and stop that. This particular charity started in 1988 when it tried to raise enough money to protect 110,000 acres of rainforest in Belize. Well, their campaign was so successful that they don't just protect 110,000 acres, but today they protect over 262,000 acres, which is very impressive, and it's incredibly important when you consider that animals like the jaguar, like the howler monkey and the ocelot are now all able to thrive in a protected environment. And the reason that their campaign was so successful is because of the model that the charity is based upon. They don't own any of the land that they buy. They buy the land and they gift it to local organisations like the Programme for Belize. They then support those organisations in the management of that habitat. So it puts the sustainable management of this habitat back in the hands of local organisations, people that actually live there. Well, this is so successful that the World Land Trust doesn't just operate in Belize anymore. They now have programmes all over the world, places like Argentina, Bolivia, and they are now responsible for the protection of over 4 million acres of land globally, which is about the size of Wales. So they're doing a really, really good and effective job. And as you might have guessed, I'm going to run the marathon for them. And if I'm going to be running 26 miles, I want to raise enough money to be able to protect 26 acres of land. So that's 1 acre for every mile that I'm going to run, which makes my fundraising goal £2,600. So if people can support me to raise this cash, then we can, at least in some way, start to save the world together. Because if we're going to protect our own species from a difficult future, then we're going to have to protect theirs first. But don't just take my word for it. The legend that is David Attenborough has said that the money given to the World Land Trust has, in his estimation, more effect on the wild world than anything else that he can think of. Thank you very much.